Wake up, folks, because I've got some really insane stories about Social Security, George Soros, and some other pretty scandalous things. And there's no way the legacy media is going to show you this. So buckle up, because it's going to be a crazy ride. And we're starting things off with something that might put a smile on your face as soon as you hear about it. Did you know that Donald Trump has just declared war on George Soros and his media monopoly? And our president is fighting the billionaire by targeting his biggest tool, NPR.
Interested in defunding and taking away taxpayer dollars to NPR and PBS.
Well, I would love to do that. I think it's very unfair. It's been very biased with the whole group. A whole group of them. And frankly, there's plenty. Look at all the media you have right now. There's plenty of coverage. I was from a different age, and they spend more money than any other network of its type ever conceived. So the kind of money that's being wasted, and it's a very biased view, you know that better than anybody. And I'd be honored to see it end.
I know some people might not understand why the NPR is so important and how it's even related to George Soros. Well, let me show you some facts about this organization and its scandalous financial history. Before we start, let's make one thing clear. National Public Radio, more commonly known as NPR, is the public radio network of the United States. And as of today, NPR has more than 1,000 member stations across the country and a listenership in the tens of millions. It's one of, if not the most influential media platforms in America. But for funding, it depends on gifts and grants from foundations, corporations, and individuals, together with member station fees and dues. And this is where George Soros comes in. You see, through his foundation, the billionaire has been a major contributor. He was funding NPR even back in 2011. And this was so controversial that people in the NPR newsroom were even concerned about taking money from someone like George Soros. Now, of course, Soros has a habit of giving away money to these media groups. For instance, between 2016 and 2020, Soros gave at least $131 million alone to influence 253 media groups, such as the Committee to Protect Journalists, the Aspen Institute, the Marshall Project, and ProPublica. Now, I'm sure many of you know what Soros thinks about our president.
President Trump is a con man and the ultimate narcissist who wants the world to revolve around him. When his fantasy of becoming president came true, his narcissism developed a pathological dimension.
But the scary thing is that by giving away these millions of dollars, he's also turning organizations like the NPR into a far-left propaganda machine. Just look at what kind of craziness comes out when the NPR CEO testified in front of a House committee.
Failed to do that. Let me ask you, why did you call President Trump a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath in 2020?
Congressman, I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I regret those tweets. I would not tweet them again today. They represented a time where I was reflecting on something that I believe that the president had said rather than who he is. I don't presume that anyone is a racist.
You don't believe anyone is a racist?
I don't start by presuming anyone is a racist.
It's unfortunate that NPR ignored the Hunter Biden laptop story. But y'all did talk quite a bit about the debunked Russia collusion. Do you know how many times NPR interviewed Adam Schiff about
Congressman, I would love to say that we actually believe we made a mistake on the Hunter Biden laptop story.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. How many times did y'all interview Adam Schiff about the Russia collusion?
I'm sorry, I don't have that number.
It was 25 times. Republicans, any registered Republicans in your newsroom?
I couldn't say registered, but I know we have conservatives in our newsroom, yes.
Okay, so the recent registration, when it was looked at, 87 Democrats and 0 Republicans registered.
So the woman running this organization hates Donald Trump even more than George Soros and only hires ultra-leftist nutjobs for editorial positions. And you're telling me we're paying for this shit? I mean, I don't care how much money we're sending to the NPR through federal grants and state contracts, it needs to stop right now. You know, one of the mission statements here on this channel is to provide raw, unbiased coverage of news events as they unfold, with a particular emphasis of cutting through the BS narratives pressed by the evil mainstream media. What if I told you there's a tool that I actually use to research stories before publishing a video? There is that tool, and it's called Ground News. It's an incredible news aggregator that compiles thousands of articles every single day and ranks them in terms of bias from left to right, so you can see how different sides of the press are covering issues as they unfold. They also have a service tool called Blind Spot that allows you to see news stories not being covered by the left or the right. It's a really great way to break you out of your echo chamber. I can pull up an article right here about Canada to impose 25% retaliatory tariffs on $21 billion worth of U.S. goods, and as you can see, almost half of sources are right down the center, and there's pretty fair margins on the left and the right. But what I find quite interesting is another story showing President Donald Trump's approval rating has declined to 47%, with the bias comparison showing less than 10% of the right is covering this. So not only can Ground News show you news bias, but also the magnitude of news media coverage, and of course tracks the corporate ownership associated with the mainstream press. Full disclosure, Ground News does cost money, but for a limited time you can get 40% off their annual Vantage subscription unlimited plan with my link. That's ground.news/HB, or scan this QR code right here. If you do that and you sign up, you get a customized homepage that learns your echo chamber and helps break you out. Again, that's ground.news/HB. And I'm glad that the politicians are finally starting to say what many people have been wanting to hear.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting is using taxpayer dollars to actively suppress the truth, suppress diverse viewpoints, and produce some of the most outlandish, ludicrous content. After listening to what we've heard today, we will be calling for the complete and total defund and dismantling of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
But while we're talking about George Soros, let me just show you how deep his influence really goes.
Y'all need to follow me on this one. Listen to this. Okay, earlier, Judge Theodore Chung had ordered Elon Musk and Doge to restore U.S. aid, claiming the shutdown violates the United States Constitution. Now, let's get into the details, and we're going to go down a rabbit hole. Let's meet Judge Theodore Chung's wife, Jacinta Ma here. Jacinta Ma was a Biden appointee and Democratic donor who previously served as vice president of George Soros-funded Open Border Advocacy Group. Yeah, it goes on further. The National Immigration Reform advocates for mass amnesty, okay, and staunchly oppose border enforcement policy. George Soros Open Society is also reportedly the group's largest donor. East West Management Institute partnered with George Soros Open Society, and guess where the funding came from? Can somebody guess? USA. Okay? Now, she spoke openly about how Biden might need to reverse the Trump's immigration policy on DACA, asylum, family separation, ICE raid, private detention, and more. President usually sets the refugee cap in the fall just before the start of the fiscal year. Biden could immediately raise the refugee cap through an executive order up above. Now, this is the same judge who blocked President Trump from ICE raids. Went in the full circle, didn't it not?
And this problem with biased judges has only gotten crazier. I mean, did you know that a third of the U.S. judges in D.C. were not born in the U.S.? I'm starting to see why old Chucky was so confident when he said that these judges are the biggest defense against Donald Trump.
That these judges will be a barrier against attacks on our democratic institutions. At the district level, these judges will have the first and often decisive impact on cases involving voting rights in elections and democracy writ large.
Now, next up, I want to talk about Social Security, because there's a debate going on that can decide the future of this program. I'm sure by now you know that DOGE has been uncovering an insane amount of fraud in the Social Security Administration.
You know, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay.
Now, to counter this fraud, DOGE is apparently looking to change the verification process. Some people can verify through an online portal, while some might have to go for an in-person visit. And while I agree this might be difficult for many U.S. citizens, it's much better than giving away millions to scammers. And yet, this is what Senator Warren said about this decision.
Suppose this same 65-year-old calls the helpline to apply for Social Security, but he's told about the new DOGE rule, so he has to go online or in person. He can't drive, he has trouble with the website, so he waits until his niece can get a day off to take him to the local Social Security office. But DOGE closed that office, so they have to drive 2 hours to get to the next closest office. When they get there, there are only 2 people who are staffing a 50-person line, so he doesn't even make it to the front of the line before the office closes, and he has to come back. Now, let's assume it takes our fellow 3 months to straighten this out, and he misses a total of $5,000 in benefits checks, which, by law, he will never get back. So, Mr. Bisignano, is that a benefit cut?
Now, people, of course, blasted her for her claims, but let me show you something else. I'm sure you remember how Kamala Harris planned to help the survivors of Hurricane Helene.
And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like.
But this aid package has 2 huge problems. In addition to being pathetically ineffective, this payment plan simply will not help the people who need this money the most, since they just won't be able to apply for it. I mean, many of them don't even have proper shelter, so where in the world are they going to find a computer to apply online? And yet, I didn't hear a single Democrat making a fuss about it. But now they say it might cause problems for people. This two-faced policy should show all of us why we cannot trust these guys. And on the other side, just look at what kind of plans Howard Lutnick has for Social Security.
The key is stop sending money to the wrong place so we can make sure we can always defend sending money to the right place.
Yeah,
I find it disgusting when we're the richest country in the world and some politician says, in order to save Social Security, rather than getting rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse, we should move it to 70.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing he said is controversial. We know Social Security is struggling, but instead of removing all the fraud, Democrats want us to work until we're 70. How the hell does that even make sense? The system is clearly broken and needs to be overhauled if we want to protect our senior citizens, but every time someone makes a proposal, the Democrats, who are millionaires, start a riot. Meanwhile, Americans who have worked their entire lives are forced to come out of retirement and do it all over again.
So the number of folks aged 65 and older that are working or looking for work has jumped by 144%.
Everyone's looking for a job. It's different world these days. Everything is almost doubled. I mean, $8 for a box of cereal. Without the food assistance programs, I wouldn't be able to, I don't know what we'd be doing.
Let me know what you guys think about this George Soros situation and this Social Security drama. Are you guys happy with the current Social Security program? Share what kind of problems you've faced while collecting the money that is rightfully yours. I appreciate you watching today's video, and I hope to see you in the next one.